Doris is the executive director of the Virginia AFL-CIO. She's a colleague I work with regularly. And so we're really honored to have you, Doris. Thank you so much. So Doris, start by what is a union anyway? Because I've talked to some young people and they're not even sure like what is a union?
So, when you look at a union, it's really just a group or a band of workers that band together for their own interest and concerns. They're able to negotiate and work for their wages and hours, health care, job security, and, respect on the workplaces and for fair scheduling. So that's sort of like it in a nutshell. And some of the biggest, what we call as unions, you wouldn't think of, is like the American Medical Association or even the Bar Association. If you're a doctor or a lawyer, you have to be part of these organizations. And you know what? They're for their own interests and concerns. So anyway, that's it in a kind of like in a nutshell. It's just a group of workers band together for their own interests and concerns.
So a union, it's local and it's regional and it's national. How is that?
So yes, so there's the Virginia AFL-CIO. We're like the umbrella organization for the state. And then we have the national AFL-CIO as well. Then individual unions have their international, like for example, I'm with CWA, the Communication Workers of America. So there are CWA local unions across the state of Virginia and others. So that's how you get local, state, and even federal on the layers and stuff. So it's pretty cool.
That's great. And all those initials, I remember years ago, I was like, it reminded me of all the denominational lingo, right? The UMCs and in the United Methodist Church and then CWA, communication workers, like lots of initials there. So are all unions in Virginia in the Virginia AFL-CIO?
No, they're not because we're a volunteer organization in terms of the Virginia AFL-CIO. But I will say this, we have over 300 affiliated local unions, and we represent over 330,000 union members and their families in the state. But no, they don't have to belong to the state AFL-CIO or anything like that. So we're
Sounds
pretty
like
proud of that,
that's
though.
most.
Yeah.
That's most unions, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. That's good. So, you've been the president for the Virginia AFL-CIO for 14 years.
Yes.
Could you give us your history? How did you become president? Like, tell us your history of how you got to this really significant role in Virginia.
So I started out as a telephone operator actually with County. Uh, and we went through the operator toll center closed down. And they were union, so I became active in CWA, the Communication Workers of America, there. And then when the operator station closed, I went to work in Radford at the AT&T manufacturing plant, which it also was CWA. Well, they closed that plant down and moved it to Mexico. So I've been active in the union there as well. And then I went to work briefly at the Radford Army and Ammunition plant, but they were not union. But then I got hired with the International Ladies Garment Workers Union as an organizer because organizing is really my passion. Um, so I went to work there, was an organizer for 5 years with ILGW, looking for that union label. And then went to work for the Communication Workers of America in their organizing department. So I was there for like 5 years, still active. And then the national AFL-CIO hired me as a state director for Virginia. And then done that for like 5 years. And then the state of Virginia wanted me to be full time in Virginia. So they hired me as a political director. And that's what led me to here. So, just came up through the ranks and at different opportunities and stuff. So.
Great, thanks for sharing that. So give us the big picture. How are workers doing in Virginia?
So, uh, we're doing well, but there's always room for improvement, like with anything. I will say that the building and construction trades, they really are booming. When you say, I mean, you can just drive down the roads or go into any communities, and there's a lot of construction and everything. And a lot of the funding came from the American Rescue Plan and stuff with everything. So there's work. We've had a lot of organizing in the state of Virginia, which has been wonderful. Within the last 18 months in Virginia alone, we've organized almost 60,000 people. I know. So we're really growing. But of course, uh, not all of the sectors have every single thing that we really strive to get and everything. And we're not just about us, we're also about all workers because it's rising tide floats all boats. So we really want to work really hard on increasing the minimum wage and paid sick leave and everything. So we still got a lot of work to do, but I think we're doing really, really well and making great strides and everything.
You know, the United Way does this annual report that's called Alice, and it really looks at, how are low income, poor working families doing in Virginia. And the summary statement from it was there's a real mismatch between wages and what it costs to live in
Right.
Virginia. Um, and so I know you all have been very active, and as have we, in trying to raise the minimum wage.
Yeah.
Um, what happened weren't we supposed to raise the minimum wage this last year? What happened, and what are we going to do about it, Doris?
So I think, well, first of all, we gotta keep striving for it. I think, unfortunately, one of the things that happened was when we have or in a position that we can really make good positive gains. I think we need to go for it all then. Whereas I think a little bit in 2020, there was this little attitude about like, oh, well, maybe we should slow things down, not do everything at one time, which I don't agree with that. I think we need to do it all right then. Um, and sometimes you have these moments where you get to, I guess, like throw it back a little bit or really make sure that people know how you're unhappy is when the state called to let me know that there would be an increase in the minimum wage in January, with the cost of, well, it was just a percentage of increase, right? And it takes it up to $12.41 an hour. And I got to say, oh, but it really should have been $15 an hour instead of the $12.41. And I think they had good advice. They're like, well, that's for another time. So I would just say, I think our time is coming and we need to take advantage of it and work and strive to where we get that because people need that most definitely.
I know you know that in this last General Assembly, both the House and the Senate passed a minimum wage increase that would have gotten us up in the next couple of years to $15, and the governor vetoed this.
Right.
Um, we got 400 clergy signed a letter to the governor urging him to please go ahead and sign this. Do you think we've got a shot at this in 25, this next, in January? Do you think we could get the governor to sign it? Or are we gonna have to wait and get a new governor in 26?
So sometimes questions like that is kind of hard to answer, but only because you may not like really, really know for sure. But the thing of it is, you can't stop trying, uh, no matter what. And a a day in politics in Virginia sometimes can be like an eternity, and things can change so dramatically. So you just don't know. But I think it's like we've got to continue doing it. And even if we are unsuccessful, once again, and the governor was to veto it, it's getting people to understand who's holding you back and what can we do about those that hold us back? So I think we got to keep trying.
Yeah, yeah. And this issue, over the years at the federal level has been a bipartisan issue. It hasn't just been a partisan issue, but we've got to figure out how to get there. So, can you share with us again? I'm not asking for in-house secrets, but what are some of your policy priorities that we can expect that you'll be working on in both 25 and 26?
So one of the things, well, a couple, but and it's no secret, we would like to repeal Virginia's right to work law, by all means. But another one of our priorities is we want to make sure that we have collective bargaining for public employees, all public employees. In 2020, we made some gains in that. Like Virginia was one of 3 states that actually prohibited public employee workers, from having a union. And when I say public employees, there's like the local, like city employees, county employees, state workers, and even school boards. So when I say public employees, that's who I'm like referring to. But we were able to get it for localities, but it's optional. So workers only get it if, well, the governing body allows that. So that's a big priority of ours. State employees was left out of that altogether, and so was higher ed. So we're going to keep trying to get that to where they're included and to have it not be optional and everything. And we've been really successful even in the optional part in organizing. Um, Actually, we just won 27,000 school board workers in Fairfax County just unionized under this law, and they have that opportunity, and they voted 93% for the union. So that's one of our priorities. And of course, still again, increasing the minimum wage, make sure everyone has health care and paid sick leaves.
Nice, nice. So, Doris, I've talked to a lot of people who say to me, right to work, that sounds like a good idea. Everybody ought to have the right to work. So, could you explain for our listeners exactly is right to work and why is it not a good thing?
So first of all, it does sound good, like you have a right, uh, but that's not how it really works. Basically, it is a way of really keeping kind of wages down in the sense that if you compare Virginia and other states, we're like lower. And everything. I mean, you can even look at Minnesota for goodness sake. Minnesota is like number 6 for business, but they're also good for workers, and they're not even a right to work state. It came about during the Jim Crow days when they were trying to keep, workers down so much and everything. So it's not that you have a right to work, it's just right to work. These laws are just not good. It weakens unions in that bargaining power and everything, and you want to have a strong union and workers to band together, and it weakens that, and workers then don't have a voice and everything. So,
Yeah, so let me, if Doris, my understanding is that right to work is it's really saying that if you vote for a union, you don't have to pay union dues. So you're like, you don't have to, and so so if you want to be a part of the medical association, you have to pay union dues. But they
yes.
set it up so that, oh, in a right to work state, okay, you vote for a union, but you don't have to pay union dues. And essentially, it's a way to completely undermine the ability of unions to function. And so it's a complete misnomer. Um, and so again, there will be efforts to try to get rid of that, but it's a confusing fight. And I've been a part of a few of these fights in some other states, in
Right.
Oklahoma a number of years ago, and it was really hard because people didn't, especially in the faith community, people really didn't understand it. And right to work sounds like such a good thing. They
Mhm.
have claimed the name on that one. Um,
Yeah,
it,
and you can even look at West Virginia. I mean, West Virginia wasn't a right to work state, but then they went right to work. And I remember Governor Justice is like, uh, one reason they went to being a right to work state is they were like told that businesses would just flock to West Virginia now if they were a right to work state. Well, they didn't actually. So Governor Justice is like, hey, what happened? You told me that if we went to be right to work, you businesses would come. I'm looking around. I don't see where they're at. So that turned out to like not be true. But you're absolutely right. It's all about keeping workers and their union down.
nice. Thanks for explaining that. So what happens when workers try to organize? Why
So,
is it so hard in this country to organize?
well, there's a couple reasons. First of all, is fear. Uh, the National Labor Relations Board, unfortunately, their governing bodies is federal appointees. So, therefore, unfortunately, some of that becomes political in that aspect. But one of the biggest things with workers is the retaliation. The employer who don't want workers to have a union in most cases will retaliate and they have fired workers. It's illegal to do that, but it we all know that the legal process can be time consuming, and by the time that's rectified, time has been spent. But it's the fear and the fact that employers fire and write workers up, and the fact that it takes a long time. It really shouldn't take a year or so to have an election, and that's why we had worked really hard on the PRO Act because that speeds up the process. And everything. And if we had a level playing field, like with neutrality, things would be so much better and everything. But it's just where workers are scared and everything because of what the power that the company holds over them.
Yeah, I've seen stats that show that, a huge percentage of workers would join a union if they felt like they could
Right,
without, being fired or intimidated or something.
right.
So, but despite that, I'm always amazed that workers, despite all that, they still organize. So you said there's been 60,000 workers organized in Virginia. where are these workers? What sectors are they in? Where are you seeing energy where people are wanting to organize?
So, well, of course, you have the building and construction trades, with everything that's going on. Uh, Also, then, like I said, in the public sector, you have Fairfax County, we've had Arlington, Alexandra, Prince William, Loudoun County, even Charlottesville. So, there's been a huge organizing there. We've also had, look at all the Starbucks workers in the state of Virginia. And that is just like so uplifting because this is young workers that are standing up. So Virginia has a lot of the Starbucks workers. We also, after a 4-year fight, the airport workers at Dulles and National, they get 40 hours now of paid sick leave each year. Um, AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees, have been doing some organizing themselves. And then an unusual one is the Machinists Local Lodge 10 here in Virginia organized the very first residential tree servicing company. So that was like a different set. So anyway, that was pretty historical, and that was the first, and it was here in Virginia. So
We're the first in many things.
yes.
So when workers organize a union, so they get together, let's say they finally, get a vote and they win it and they try and do a contract. Do things really improve for workers? Are things better with a union for workers than without a union?
So after, yeah, well, definitely it's better with a union and everything. It will take them a little time to negotiate that first contract as well. But what's so great about this is in the contract negotiations, you're sitting down with your employers and having that discussion and negotiating back and forth. So just having that opportunity to have that discussion and negotiate is definitely beneficial and makes things better. And workers then know how much raise they're going to get, what is the rules and regulations, what do we have in healthcare, what are our benefits, what is our schedule. So that really, really helps workers to plan for everything in their future.
Nice, nice. Um, so, as you know, Virginia considers itself a very pro-business
Mhm.
place, um, and unions are sometimes viewed as bad for business. And so, just wondered, we're starting to see, some businesses coming out and saying we need more affordable housing, we need more, childcare assistance, right? These are things that labor has always stood for. Um, and I wonder, do you think there's could be a change in terms of businesses sort of viewing unions as partners in moving forward in Virginia?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a great possibility in that and looking to the future with all of this. I mean, the best way to help Virginia's business community is to understand that unions are good for workers and for business is to actually have conversations and to talk about it. So I think we're seeing more and more of that, with business and unions having that discussion. And if workers have better wages, they're able to afford better housing or even get housing in that aspect. So this really does help. Uh, and I think there is an increase of businesses working a little bit with the unions and the community to make everyone realize that it's a community issue as well. And, some of the examples I would be like, Michigan and or some of the states as well. Of course, Michigan was not a right to work, went right to work, but now it's went back to repealing right to work. So that's been really, really good. And then look at Minnesota. I mean, I know I mentioned it before, but they're not a right to work state. Unions are strong, and they're sixth in for business. In Virginia, we made some gains. I mean, we were on Oxfam, we were like down 51 for workers of all the states, which confused me because I only thought there was 50 states, but they were 51. But now with the things that we've increased, even with the gains of minimum wage and everything in Virginia, we've now moved up to 22. And you know what? The sky didn't fall. As a matter of fact, 22 for workers and still number one for business. So I think that right there proves that you can work together, and we just got to do more of that.
So, Doris, you know that the Virginia Interfaith Center is faith-based. Now, again, people involved with us who are just good people and like what we do. But again, at the heart of our work is really with congregations and people who do this work out of their faith. And most faith traditions really have strong statements about the rights of workers to organize, the right of workers to have a living wage. Really, there are really good statements. Now, that doesn't mean our faith institutions always abide by those,
Right.
uh, or that everybody knows what those teachings are. Um, but I do think there's a core support for the same values that the AFL-CIO has. Um, and I wondered what your thoughts are on how the faith community can be more involved with labor, can be more supportive of workers and labor. How do we do that? How do we find out what's going on?
So, I think there's a couple of ways. I mean, one thing about the labor organizations, we're like all over the state, right? So we're in those communities where faith-based organizations are. I'm not sure we're talking to each other, which is sad. And I think we need to, work on that on both sides, I would say as well. So we have like area labor federations. There's four in the state. So that is like a place where all of the different local unions are affiliated with as well for like that section. So um, I can send you all a list of the four area labor federations and when they meet, the contact information. And I would just say and encourage everyone, call them, ask to go to a meeting and everything, and just, have a discussion. Uh, I know that the local unions and the area labor federations would be very open to that as well. And then, we do have this is Labor Day week, uh, so to speak. So we do have some activities that are going on. Um, for example, this Saturday in Roanoke, there will be a Labor Day parade, and I can get those details to you later. They start that morning, and they have a parade that goes down to the market in Roanoke. In Northern Virginia on Sunday at Fort Hunt, there's a huge Labor Day picnic, which is huge. So I would encourage people to do that if all possible. And then on Monday, actual Labor Day, Labor works with the Hampton Democratic Committee, and we do a huge labor breakfast and everything in Hampton. So those are kind of like three of the things, but I think it's just a matter of I think if we all worked for on one issue together, because that's how you build relationships as well, is to have one common focus to work on, because that really strengthens both of us and the faith based.
Nice. Well, I know we will be working together on the minimum wage, on paid sick days, right? These are things we will continue to
Right.
partner on. I do also wonder, again, we've done some, like when the Nabisco workers were on strike, we had people, you know, faith leaders and faith community folks show up on the picket line. We've done a fair amount in Northern Virginia supporting the airport workers up there. We've done a couple, we've done some Starbucks action supporting Starbucks workers. So we've done some of that. But how do we learn more about those things so we can be there, be more present in some of those activities?
So one of the quickest ways I think is in terms of the Virginia AFL-CIO on activities and stuff that's happening around the state, where we send out communication, is to get you all on our email list. That because that we send things out all the time about activities coming up. Could be a mobilization around getting people to call or writing a letter or coming to this march or coming to this activity, in support of workers. So that's one good way as well, where we, just get on our list and people can just send me their email and we'll put you on it and stuff. Yeah. So, and then
Doris, do you want to tell us what that email is, and maybe Hamna, you can put it in the chat for us.
yeah, so I would just say to start out, just send me an email with the email address you want to include. My email is dcmays, MAYS, at va-aflcio.org.
Awesome. Ooh, now here's somebody who gives out their personal email. Be careful.
Well, you can also go on our website at the Virginia AFL-CIO, and there's a contact that says info at VA. Well, that's me too. So info and Doris. So
It all comes to
it
Doris.
all comes to
I know about these small operations. We do it all, right? This is great. So let me see if there are any questions. Hamna, do we have any questions that people have raised?
Oh, not currently.
oh, well.
You've been so clear and helpful. That's great. Well, Doris, I'm gonna send out some of this information in our weekly roundup again tomorrow. And we really do want to do more, strengthen these relationships. Maybe, years ago we used to do a labor in the pulpits program. I
Right.
wonder maybe next year we could think about that or
Yes.
something. Again, I just
Right.
feel like we do have so many shared values, and Labor Day weekend, I like the picnics, I like the family gathering, but it also should be about labor, right?
Right.
And so I'd love to work with you to think about how do we put labor back into Labor Day weekend, at least in our congregation, so we can talk about it more. So
Yeah.
love to do that. And again, I'm just so grateful for all you do. I'm grateful for your friendship personally, but also for your partnership organizationally. We can't win these things like minimum wage alone. So again, I just appreciate all that you do here in Virginia.
Yeah, and upon closing, let me just thank you all for everything that you have done and the support for, all workers here in Virginia, and how we have to continue, but more importantly, strengthen this relationship, not just on a statewide level, but in our communities as well, because our strength together is what's going to benefit everyone, for all workers and all across the state, and for all the different community organizations as well. So we've just got to stick together and work together.
Awesome. God bless, and everybody have a safe and wonderful and maybe labor thoughtful Labor Day weekend. God bless.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.